You know, a rather strange thing happens when a person starts to awaken. It is not a loud event. It does not come with fireworks or a grand announcement from the sky. It is subtle, but it changes everything. When you stop playing the game of life too seriously, when you look through this whole grand cosmic joke, you become, how to say it right, inconvenient. You become difficult to categorize. You no longer fit into the neat little boxes that society has prepared for you. You no longer participate in the theater of social gestures with the same serious investment as before. You stop clapping when everyone else claps. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny just to be polite. And right at that moment, you start to find yourself quietly stepping back, retreating to the edge, choosing silence instead of noise. You choose the periphery instead of the center of the drama. Solitude does not come from being different, but from seeing differently. It comes from a shift in perspective so radical that the old world no longer makes sense. Most people are still immersed in a kind of collective sleepwalking. They are dreaming with their eyes open. They play roles, repeat lines, move according to procedures, all while being completely unaware that they are sleeping. They are actors who have forgotten they are on a stage. Awakening is the moment the curtain falls. The lights come on, and you see the props for what they are. You see that the castle is made of cardboard. You see that the crown is made of plastic. You see that all the effort, all the chasing, all the seriousness in life is like trying to grasp your own shadow. It is a futile game of tag with a ghost. You have lost the ability to view the social game seriously. Here is the interesting thing. When you are still asleep in life, you also participate in that game very easily. It feels natural because you are part of the hypnosis. But once you wake up, you can no longer do it. You cannot unsee the strings attached to the puppets. Have you ever walked into a room and sensed something that no one else seemed to notice? The tension in the air, the unspoken agreements, the small masks people wear to protect their fragile egos, the roles they slide into just like putting on costumes for a play. The responsible father, the rebellious son, the victim, the hero. Everyone views that performance very seriously, but you look through it. You see the trembling human beneath the costume. You clearly see the fear behind the arrogance. You see the insecurity screaming behind the loud confidence. You see the emptiness beneath the busyness. In that moment, you realize that what you consider absolutely real and solid is actually just a kind of collective dream. It is an agreed-upon fantasy that is only valid as long as everyone continues to believe in it. Money, status, fame. They are all just tokens in the game. That is when you step out of the old flow, even if just half a step. You stop rowing the boat downstream with the manic energy of the crowd. Immediately you find yourself in a very strange position. You are an observer in a room full of participants. You are still in the play, but you remember that you are acting. You say the lines, but there is a knowing smile behind them. And that feeling is the beginning of silence. Why silence? Why does the voice drop to a whisper? Because awakening has changed your operating frequency. It is like trying to tune into a radio station that most people cannot pick up. They are tuned to AM radio static noise, constant chatter. You have switched to FM clarity, music depth. They hear static where you hear music, and they hear music where you start to recognize the silence between the notes. You begin to value the space between the words more than the words themselves. Most of what people are saying, you see, is not really communication. It is not a bridge between two souls. It is noise. It is a defense mechanism. It is filling the gap to avoid the awkwardness of existence. It is trying to impress, persuade, or manipulate. It is a sales pitch for their own ego. Most conversation is just a way to escape oneself. People talk to avoid hearing their own heartbeat. When you are in a crowd, what you hear is not pleasant at all. If you really listen underneath the polite chatter, it is a cacophony. You hear anxiety emitting like a siren. You hear anger vibrating in the laughter. You hear the urgent need to be recognized, validated, and loved. It is a desperate cry for help, disguised as small talk. The awakened person, in a sense, has discarded their own noise, or at least learned not to identify with it. They have turned down the volume of their own internal radio, and because of that, they become extremely sensitive to the noise of others. Without the buffer of your own ego, the ego of others hits you hard. It is like you are trying to listen to a beautiful piece of music, a subtle symphony of the universe. But in the room, there are 30 radios playing 30 different channels at full volume. One is playing news, one is playing heavy metal, one is playing advertisements. It is overwhelming. The awakened person finds the crowd exhausting. It is not social anxiety, it is energetic depletion. Keeping alertness amidst a sea of unconscious people requires a huge amount of energy. You are holding a frequency that is contrary to the environment. You must constantly filter out projections. People project their fears, their desires, and their judgments onto you. You must hold your center while chaos swirls around you. You must be the rock in the river. This consumes terrible energy. So they retreat. They go to the cave, the forest, or just the quiet room in their house. The awakened person stops participating in the commotion because they have lost the addiction to that pattern. They no longer need the drama to feel alive. Now when they feel this fatigue, it is a sign. It is a biological feedback mechanism. It is a sign that you are living in a way that drains energy instead of nourishing you. You are swimming against the current of your own soul. You are maintaining a version of yourself that is not true to your real self. The old you is a heavy coat that you are tired of carrying, and it requires a huge amount of energy to keep it alive, to keep the mask from slipping. The awakened person gradually becomes silent because they can no longer accept falseness. They have developed an intolerance for bullshit. The truth they see is undeniable, and it leads to 4 major realizations. Cannot go back to sleep. This is the point of no return. Once you have seen through the game, you cannot unsee anymore. You cannot pretend the emperor is wearing clothes when you know he is naked. Innocence is lost, but wisdom is gained. You have tasted the real thing, the nectar of presence, and the fake goods lose all flavor. The cheap thrill of gossip, the rush of winning an argument, the satisfaction of judging others. It all tastes like ash now. Even if you want to go back to playing the old role just to fit in, you can't. The old suit no longer fits. It is too tight in the shoulders. It restricts your breathing. It feels false. It feels like wearing a costume to a funeral. You lose the ability to be satisfied with illusions. You starve for reality. Language is a clumsy tool. You realize how limited words really are. Truth is not a concept to debate, but a state of being. It is a frequency, not a sentence. Words rarely bridge that gap. They are fingers pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. Wise people stop arguing. They stop trying to prove they are right. They stop preaching from the mountaintop. They simply start living. Their life becomes the lecture. Their walk becomes the sermon. When you try to explain what you see to someone who is not ready, it almost never works. It is like trying to explain the color blue to a blind man. Actually, it often has the opposite effect. It triggers their defense mechanisms. People will distort your words to fit their worldview. They hear what they want to hear. They turn you into the villain in their story because your truth threatens their illusion. This is why masters say, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Silence preserves the energy of truth. You cannot convey the fragrance of an invisible flower with words. You can only invite them to the garden. Awakening cannot be handed over like a gift wrapped in paper. It must be unwrapped by the receiver. Compassion requires silence. This is a profound realization. Waking up a person who is not ready is a form of violence. It is an act of aggression. If someone is having a pleasant dream, dreaming of a beautiful banquet, you would not shake them awake. Unless the house is burning, let them sleep. Maybe they need the rest. Compassion means knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when to be silent. It means respecting the journey of the other soul. You can only provide the appropriate conditions and then step back. You act like a gardener. You water the soil, you ensure there is sunlight, but you do not pull the plant to make it grow faster. You must carry that vision gently. Be like a person holding a flame in the dark. You hold it high not to burn anyone, but to illuminate the path. If they choose to walk the path, good. If they choose to stay in the dark, that is also their choice. The true art when living among those still asleep is not to wake them with noise. It is not to ring a bell in their ear. It is to let them dream beautifully until they start to wake up on their own. Your peace becomes the lullaby that eventually wakes them up into a new morning. Explanation weakens the self. The constant need to justify is a leak in your power vessel. To clarify your choices to make others understand your path is very exhausting. It implies that you need their permission to exist. When you stop offering explanations, you stop giving away your authority. You reclaim your sovereignty. You stop acting as if you need their approval, their recognition, their understanding. You realize that you don't need a witness to your life to make it real. When you try to please everyone, you are killing something inside yourself. You are sacrificing the sacred for the profane. That thing you are killing is your authenticity. And when there is no more authenticity, life loses its flavor. It becomes bland, gray, and mechanical. Silence preserves your flavor. Solitude and silence are not a problem to solve. They are not symptoms of a disorder. They are a door to walk through. They are the threshold of a new world. Silence is where the awakened person finally stops being lonely. This is the great paradox. The state of being alone is not loneliness. There is a vast difference between loneliness and the state of being alone. Solitude. Loneliness is a poverty of self. It is the feeling you have when surrounded by people who do not see you. It is feeling disconnected, even in a hug. The state of being alone is an abundance of self. It is the feeling you have when you are finally free to be yourself. It is the joy of your own company. In solitude, you discover your true self beneath all the roles you are playing. You strip away the masks. You wash off the makeup. You discover what you really think instead of what people tell you to think. You discover what you really feel instead of what you are supposed to feel. The monk on the mountain understands that. People ask him, "Are you not lonely?" He smiles and says, "I do not live alone. I live with myself. I live with the universe. When I was still in the city, amidst thousands of people disconnected from my soul, that was when I was truly lonely." Silence is not empty at all. This is the biggest misconception. At first, silence seems heavy. It feels oppressive because you are used to the constant stimulation. But soon, if you stay with it, you realize that silence is not empty at all. It is full. It is rich. It is teeming with life. It is full of subtle movements, gentle thoughts, the breath of life itself. It is full of the sound of the wind, the hum of the earth, the beating of your own heart. When you are silent, truly silent, not just outside, but inside. When the internal chatter stops, the barrier between you and the world dissolves. You are no longer separate. You stop being the observer looking at life from the outside. You become that life looking out from the inside. You become the tree. You become the wind. You become the silence itself. Returning to oneself. This withdrawal is the hermit phase. It is a necessary incubation period, like a caterpillar in a cocoon. You cannot transform while still maintaining all your old connections and commitments. You cannot grow wings while carrying the weight of the past. You are healing the wounds that come from pretending to be someone you are not. The exhaustion of inauthenticity is being washed away. When you choose yourself, you find a still center, a standing point in the turning world. You become self-referential, not selfish. You no longer seek meaning in others. You no longer beg for love. You become the source of love. You bring meaning to others. The person who has awakened no longer fears loneliness, because they realize that being alone is not feeling lonely. Actually, they realize that you can feel lonely in a crowd. And you can feel deeply connected in absolute solitude. Connected to the stars, to the history of humanity, to the divine. The awakened person learns to speak without words. They master the language of energy. They move through the world as a calm presence, a quiet harmony in a dissonant world. They express awakening in laughter, not the loud raucous laughter of the bar, but the gentle laughter of understanding. In kindness, not the performative kindness of social media, but the anonymous kindness of a helping hand. In presence, just being there, fully, completely. You do not need to shout your truth. Truth does not need a megaphone. The sun does not announce itself. It does not scream, "I am rising." It simply rises. But everything it touches starts to shine. Everything it touches comes to life. Your presence should be like the sun, warm, illuminating, and silent. This is the ultimate paradox. Silence, my friend, is not the absence of communication. It is the deepest form of communication. It is the presence of wisdom. It is the vibration of love. Let your presence teach instead of words. Words can be debated. Words can be misunderstood. But presence cannot be faked. Energy cannot lie. You are just a person awake in a world mostly asleep. You are the designated driver at a party where everyone is drunk. You don't judge them for being drunk. You just make sure they get home safely. And your wakefulness is a gift to this sleeping world. Your silence is a healing balm for the noise. And when all is said and done, when the curtain falls on the final act, when every soul has finished dreaming its dream, when the noise of history fades away, the entire play returns to silence. The universe returns to its original state. And the silence smiles. It is a smile of compassion, of understanding, and of infinite peace.